Hello everybody, welcome back to 10-Minute Reviews. I'm Jason, bringing you today's video. The fuzzy one, Freya, is running around somewhere. She just had the zoomies, so she might be sleeping already. And I want to bring you another book today. We're going to talk about an author we've talked about in the past, just talking about another one of his books, because he's a fantastic author. He really is. And I want to talk about Louis Lamour. Louis Lamour, so obviously you guys have discovered I'm kind of a fan of Westerns. To give you guys an idea, Westerns, science fiction, fantasy, those are my big ones. And then thrillers, mysteries, not really drama books. Those also all fall under the category of things that I like to read. So, as always, guys, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. We're a small family channel. We just love to talk about books. We want to bring you guys books to read. We don't think enough people read for pleasure. And those that do, I have some friends that do, have difficulty finding their next books that they want to read. So I like to talk about books, bring you guys some books. So I want to talk about Louis Lamour, and I want to talk about his book, Kiowa Trail. All right? One great thing about Louis Lamour is his books were relatively short. They were short, they were thin, they were fairly easy, fun reads. Always exciting to read, just a good time. Started to become a little bit formulaic, but always a good time. So, as always, I'll talk 4 categories, or as most of the time, I'm going to talk in 4 categories. Obviously, the world it's our world just, a century and a half ago. Usually he writes in the late 1800s. Occasionally he writes in other time frames, but typically he likes to write his westerns in the mid to late 1800s, the gunfighter time period. Obviously it's very romanticized. Historians have shown that a lot of what we think about the Old West and what we think about gunfighters and stuff like that didn't really exist. There weren't a lot of quick draw gunfights and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean it's not fun to read about this stuff. So, Kiowa Trail, it's interesting because he kind of does a slight twist with some of his usual fare. So again, our world, that's the world. Now the main character is Con Dury. Now some other characters come into play, side characters, supporting characters, other gunfighters, the bad guys, his boss, but it all focuses around Con Dury. Con Dury is a cattleman. He is basically he's a foreman. He runs the ranch and pretty much runs all of the operations for his boss. He has a female boss, as her husband had died before she continued to keep control of the ranch, and her younger brother. So the premise of the book, and now we're going to go into the plot, and this is where it gets interesting. The premise of the book, they're on a cattle drive. They're bringing the cattle to the normal little town that they usually bring it to. And this town is, like a lot of Old West towns, especially the cattle towns, it's kind of divided. And again, somewhat historically accurate, they do use the railroad tracks as kind of a dividing line, which is pretty common back then, because you needed the railroad to transport the cows. So they kind of have it cows and cattlemen and cow people, and then the other side of the railroad tracks are the citizens of the town, the normal folk, and they really push to keep them separate, to the point where they even have local ordinances that prevent the cow people and the cattlemen and ranchers and cowboys, drovers, all of them from crossing the railroad tracks. Basically, it's in a lot of ways, Louis Lamour here is he's almost touching on racism without actually touching on racism. So the main character, his, I guess, friend, protege, his boss's younger brother, has a girl, and he goes across the tracks to visit her. Now she's a pretty evil little girl. She's just using him. She's just having fun. And she thinks it's fun for him to come across the other side of the tracks and get in trouble. Well, he gets in trouble, alright. He ends up getting killed. And Con Dury, it turns out, is somewhat famous as a gunfighter and warrior, and so are some of his cattlemen, especially some of his friends that he draws in from other areas as the book goes on. So the town gets a little bit nervous, wondering, especially the sheriff, wondering exactly what is Con Dury going to do. I mean, this guy, to them, is a cold-blooded killer. And what is his boss going to do? Her younger brother was just killed. And this is where it gets interesting, because what she does, she uses her wealth. It's pretty interesting, pretty clever. She uses her wealth. She buys up all the non-public land around the town and fences the town. Fences the town and refuses to let any herds of cattle through. Now, typically, cattlemen don't like fences. They don't like being told where they can and cannot take their cows. However, in this case, she's well known as a rancher, and of course, like sticks to like. So, once they hear the story, they tend to support her, and so they start taking their herd somewhere else. And um, and of course, this is crippling to the town. She's teaching the town a lesson. Like, you want to treat the cowboys and the cattlemen and the ranchers so badly, and yet your town requires it in order to survive. Of course, she lets people leave. She lets people leave. She lets people cross her land because it's legally required. Lets people cross her land to leave, and lets people cross her land to go into the town, all except for cows. No cows. No cows are allowed to cross into that town, and it ends up turning into a state of war. Now, Conduri, of course, has a past that comes up. He was raised in England. He was educated in England after his friend and boss and mentor was killed, and after he tracked down most of the killers. Again, he's a known gunfighter. It's all very, very, very fascinating. It's an excellent read. It really is. This is actually one of my favorite Louis Lamour books, outside of the Sackett series. This is one of my favorite Louis Lamour books. I've read this book probably 30 times. And again, it's exciting. As far as the writing style goes, you guys all know how Louis Lamour writes. Short, concise, very interesting, very gripping, fun. Fun. You're not bored. You're not bored. You're not waiting for the next bit of action to come. It's a good time. So thank you everybody for watching. After you guys hit that like and subscribe button, if you guys haven't checked out Louis Lamour, because he's an older author, so back in the 80s everyone knew who Louis Lamour was. 90s, and now that we're into the 2020s, God, I'm getting old. It's a little bit. He's a little bit less well known. So for those of you guys that have not checked him out before, go check him out. Again, they're quick reads, worth a try. Why not? It's fun, something quick, easy to read. Thank you everybody for watching. Catch you next time. Bye now.